Dear conference participants, we are offering you a speech on the topic theoretical and applied basis of creating a system for automatic phraseological units, classification in English texts based on artificial intelligence technologies usage. The relevance of the topic presented to your attention is due to the following. In recent years, a lot of attention has been paid to study of natural language processing in general and phraseology in particular. This is due to the improvement of research tools, in particular the development of information technology and artificial intelligence has made it possible to develop systems capable of analyzing and understanding human speech. The computational capabilities of these tools increase the number of linguistic tasks that can be solved and deepen the level of their processing. One of the key problems in natural language processing is the recognition and classification of phraseological units. Automatic classification of phraseological units in English texts is an important task of natural language processing, which involves identification and categorization of groups of words or phrases based on their semantic and syntactic properties. The subject area of automatic classification of phraseological units lies in the intersection of computational linguistics and natural language processing. Currently, several major software tools are available for automatic classification, in particular, such as Sketch Engine, LAWC, Context, and LTK, Phrase Detective. However, they have the following disadvantages: limited scalability, error-prone, overhead maintenance costs, lack of adaptability, lack of understanding of contexts, data displacement, need for large amounts of training data, limited interpretation capabilities, lack of transparency, etc. At the same time, today's practice requires systems that would be characterized by these features: flexibility, clarity, high accuracy, scalability, ability to manage data, automatic feature extraction, high speed of data processing, possibility of generalization, contextual understanding, and reliability. Thus, the practice of preliminary recognition and classification of phraseological units in natural language processing programs indicates the lack of perfectly working approaches and methods that could ensure the identification and classification of phraseological units in any English text without error and distortion. This, in turn, necessitates the elaboration of theoretical and applied foundations for the development of an effective system for the automatic classification of phraseological units in English texts, based on the use of modern information technologies in general and artificial intelligence in particular, and the creation of the said system. In order to determine approaches to solving this problem, we analyze the state of the issue. Its individual aspects can be assessed from slide number 3. In recent periods, several productive approaches have been proposed for automatic classification of phraseological units, which can be broadly divided into 3 categories: rule-based approach, statistic-based approach, and machine learning approach. The following methods have been used to classify phraseological units in the raw text: the use of constructed local grammars, the use of dictionaries, and the use of statistical processes. Slide number 3 shows a comparative assessment of these approaches by various features. The analysis allowed us to conclude that in order to achieve the goal, it is necessary to clearly state the task of developing a system for automatic classification of phraseological units in English texts, to design the structure of the corresponding system, and to implement it in software. Present to your attention the results of this research in the following areas. The input to the system should be an array of English text consisting of sentences, paragraphs, and large segments of text. The output of the system should be a list of phraseological units found in the text representing the identified phrases and classified according to the specified features. The system should process the input data and automatically generate the result. The system should demonstrate the following key capabilities: complex perception, accurate identification and classification, scalability and efficiency, further analysis. Theoretical basis of the developed system for automatic classification of phraseological units in English texts should be an improved method of automatic classification of phraseological units that would combine the strengths of rule-based and machine learning methods. In the following, we will call this method a hybrid method. The main idea of the hybrid method is to use rule-based method to identify and distinguish specific types of phraseological units, and then apply machine learning methods to classify phraseological units based on their semantic and syntactic properties. When developing an information system for the automatic classification of phraseological units, we divided the structure of the information system into three main components: data preprocessing, feature extraction, and classification. Data preprocessing involves cleaning and organizing data before it is fed into a feature extraction and classification algorithm. Feature extraction involves the identifying the characteristics of phraseological units that can distinguish them from other types of expressions. Classification involves grouping similar phraseological units based on the features identified during the feature extraction process. Classification involves grouping similar phraseological units on the features during the feature extraction process. The development of an information system for automatic classification of phraseological units has certain difficulties. One of the biggest challenges is the diversity and complexity of phraseological units in different languages and cultures. In addition, the accuracy of the classification has strongly depends on the quality of the training data and the choice of feature extraction and classification methods. Therefore, the data set and available computing resources. Likewise, the choice of classification method depends on the size of the data set, the complexity of the feature, and the desired classification accuracy. The analysis and research made it possible to propose the author's information system for implementing the hybrid methods for categorizing phraseological units. The above theoretical foundations for creating an information system for classifying phraseological units allow for its software implementation. Slide number 7 shows a diagram of the authoring software that implements the described hybrid method. From this slide, one can also evaluate a diagram that demonstrates the main components and their relationships in the hybrid algorithm. The hybrid software interface in terms of structure and visual design is closely aligned with the NLTK interface. Slide number 8 shows the results of applying the existing and proposed software to solve the problem under the study. Sketch engine was used as the existing software. For classification, 100 phraseological units were selected. The results of the classification were as follows. As a result of the sketch engine software, 27 phraseological units were assigned to group 1, 9 to group 2, 6 to group 3, 19 to group 4, 16 to group 5, and 23 phraseological units were not classified by specific feature. The time for automatic classification was 27 seconds. The results of classification of the same phraseological units by hybrid software were as follows. 27 phraseological units were assigned to group 1, 9 to group 2, 6 to group 3, 19 to group 4, 16 to group 5, and 14 were not included in a specific group. Moreover, thanks to the author's method, the algorithm was able to identify 2 additional features and classify another 19 phraseological units into the newly 2 groups. The automatic classification time was 19 seconds. Thus, the author's software allowed not only to reduce the time spent on processing phraseological units, but also to establish additional patterns for the classification features by which phraseological units are classified. Based on the results of the study, the following main conclusions can be drawn. Currently, one of the key problems in natural language processing is the recognition and classification of phraseological units. The task of automating the classification of phraseological units in English text is an urgent one. The existing systems for automated classification of phraseological units can contain a number of shortcomings that do not allow to effectively solve the problem of their quality of classification. The theoretical basis for solving the formulated problem can be a hybrid method proposed by the authors, the main idea of which is to use a rule-based method to identify and distinguish specific types of phraseological units, and further apply machine learning methods to classify phraseological units based on their semantic and syntactic properties. It is advisable to use the Python to develop a system for automatic classification of phraseological units in English text that implements a hybrid method. The presentation is over. Thank you for your attention.